I was having y'all, it's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and I know I'm a little late. I'm a day late, but I've been busy. But I wanted to talk about the fact that the Commanders are silently trying to acquire Kareem Hunt potentially. It's the silently part about it that, like, you know, anything that's going on like behind the scenes and people want to keep it quiet, there's real interest there. Like a lot of this Dan Snyder, and especially on the Josh Harris side of it and stuff like that, a lot of it was being kept quiet as long as possible. A lot of that was silent, and we see how that went. And even some Eric Bieniemy stuff. I mean, it was like reports and rumors that we may have been really interested in him before we got him, like leading up to it. And then as soon as we could, as soon as he was free, after he won the Super Bowl, we were on him. And it just seemed like this may have the same type of energy to it. So we got to dive into what this whole Kareem Hunt situation means. Look at this entire Commanders running back group. Is there even room for a Kareem Hunt? Also, is it realistic that we actually could end up getting him? He is a free agent, and Eric Bieniemy, Kareem Hunt do have a strong relationship from their time together in Kansas City. Is that a possibility? Is Kareem Hunt even interested in the Commanders? Is it a two-way street? All of that type of stuff. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release the informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you stay tuned for all of the Commanders content. I'm gonna keep y'all busy leading up all the way to training camp, which is like 5 weeks away. Make sure you stay tuned to all of my rookie film sessions. Already did Emmanuel Forbes, working on Quan Martin next, and then we're gonna go all the way down and even work on some undrafted free agents. Also, stay tuned for all of my different position groups, scenarios, projections, and alignments and things like that. Make sure you stay tuned for all of that. Without further ado, let's get it.
You tell your family you can be a commander.
All right, so this all started when 2 nights ago, Josina Anderson tweeted, "I'm told the Commanders have quietly been making some preliminary inquiries behind the scenes on free agent running back Kareem Hunt per league source. We'll see if this leads to an opportunity for Hunt with Washington." And I know a lot of people were speculating that this may be a thing even before this was reported. Not based off any reports, any rumors or anything like that, but just, hey, Kareem Hunt's a free agent. Should the Commanders go get him? My answer's always been, I just feel like we already have a really good group of running backs, and if anything, I'm worried about Antonio Gibson getting enough shine by itself. And I feel like he's just this athletic freak that's just waiting to be unlocked, this monster that once Eric Bieniemy gets his hands on him is going to finally be that guy that we've been hoping he could be, even just fantasy football wise, since he's been drafted here. And so I'm just not exactly sure where he fits in. We're going to get to that though. We're going to dive into the entire Commanders running back room, but that has always been my stance since people have been bringing that up for basically months now. Oh, Kareem Hunt's a free agent and things like that. But now that there's seems like trustworthy sources that are saying that the Commanders are interested in Kareem Hunt, it does change things a little. You're looking like, well, maybe if we got Brian Robinson, we just drafted Chris Rodriguez in the 6th round, Antonio Gibson, and Kareem Hunt. Like, how do you stop that? But you got to remember, it's only one ball. But again, we're going to get to that later. First of all, just Kareem Hunt's history. He's younger than I remember him being. I completely forgot that he's only 27 years old and that he's only played 6 NFL seasons so far. It just seemed like he's been through so much on and off the field. And one thing I do want to point out before we dive into his history is that I feel like even though he may have a strong connection to Eric Bieniemy, I feel like that would be a bigger argument for him if he had only played for the Kansas City Chiefs, no experience with the Browns, no time with the Browns or anything like that, and then Eric Bieniemy becomes an offensive coordinator for another team / assistant head coach on the way to probably be a head coach. Then I can see the bigger argument for, okay, maybe Kareem Hunt follows Eric Bieniemy, but Eric Bieniemy has already gone and shown that he can go somewhere else and still produce. He's not Eric Bieniemy dependent. Now, of course, I'm pretty sure he would prefer to be around Eric Bieniemy than most offensive coordinators in the NFL, not even just because of talent and genius and scheme and stuff like that, but trust, because of history and things like that, a connection, chemistry. But at the same time, man, this guy went to the Cleveland Browns and was behind one of the best running backs in the NFL, arguably the best running back in the NFL, and Nick Chubb, and was still producing. Nick Chubb is out here putting up crazy numbers, and Kareem Hunt still finding a way behind that to put up crazy numbers. Remember, he's only played 6 NFL seasons, 2 with the Kansas City Chiefs, but 4 more with the Cleveland Browns. He's done more for the Cleveland Browns than he even did for the Kansas City Chiefs. his name is attached more to the Browns than it is to Kansas City Chiefs at this point. So, of course, there's that chemistry and familiarity with Eric Bieniemy, but he's basically gotten his own life, his own name, his own fame and all of that on his own with an entirely different team, offensive coordinator, and everything like that. He amassed 678 yards and 4 touchdowns on 158 touches in a backup role to Nick Chubb last year. And one thing that is relatively important to notice is that the Commanders are coming off of a season where it rushed for just 4 yards per carry, the 6th lowest in the entire NFL last year, whereas Hunt rushed for 4.5 yards per carry throughout his career. But he did end the season last year on his lowest, which was a 3.8 yards per carry, which was even lower than the Commanders. Again, the Commanders were the 6th lowest in the NFL. But overall, his average throughout his entire career is a 4.5. So if you believe in that, then you could say that he definitely would be an upgrade over what we currently have statistically. But you got to remember, like, being a running back is not a one-man show. Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson can only do so much. The offensive line matters, the quarterback play matters to take people out of the box, and then of course the offensive coordinator matters, and going from Scott Turner to Eric Bieniemy is a huge difference. So even though statistically our running backs didn't look that great last year, especially on a per carry basis, I believe they will this upcoming season just simply because of an improved offensive line and Eric Bieniemy as an offensive coordinator. And again, I think Sam Howell by default is going to be better than anything we got from Taylor Heinicke and Carson Wentz last year, so that should open up the run game for those guys, again taking defenders out of the box that are literally focused on stopping the run. Now you got to worry about the pass as well. And even like Benjamin St. Juste said, as far as this Eric Bieniemy scheme, he's so used to on 3rd and short, it's obvious they're going to run the ball. But with Eric Bieniemy, it may be a throw 40 yards down the field. You have no idea. You have to play very balanced, which is going to prevent teams from forcibly stopping the run, focusing on stopping it, which should open things up for Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson, make things way easier for them, even without Kareem Hunt there. And of course, Kareem Hunt, with him being a dual threat guy, catching 35 passes for 210 yards and a touchdown last season, he did way more than that in previous years for the Browns and even the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, this previous year was like a really down year for him compared to his other seasons. So it sounds like if we were to bring in Kareem Hunt, he's not necessarily competing with Brian Robinson and Chris Rodriguez directly. I mean, the more mouths you bring in the feed, the more everybody else is hungry. So he does affect them in a way, but it's more so direct competition with Antonio Gibson. When you bring in Kareem Hunt, you basically say, yeah, Antonio Gibson, we don't believe that you can handle the role full time. We're going to have somebody to come in and split that role with you. And then even potentially with Antonio Gibson on a contract year, his final season is this 2023 season as far as the Commanders go, as far as him actually being on the team contract wise. So he's trying to get as many touches as he can so he can get that next big contract. And for us to bring in Kareem Hunt at a time like this would actually be pretty insane for him. Gibson is an impending free agent, and he only averaged 9.25 touches per game over the last 4 games that he played in. But again, I think that's more of a Scott Turner, bad offensive line, bad quarterback play problem than Antonio Gibson. I'm one of those people that's a huge believer in Antonio Gibson. I think, just being that, so he's basically the size of Brian Robinson, and then he runs a 4.3 something. You saw it in that 80-yard screen against the Bills, man. Not too many people in the entire NFL could do something like that. This is just talent that's waiting to be unlocked, and I think Eric Bieniemy coming in to be the offensive coordinator was like the last straw. Getting improved offensive line, better quarterback play help a lot as well, but Eric Bieniemy being your offensive coordinator, I'm pretty sure Antonio Gibson was even happier than us fans were to hear that Eric Bieniemy was becoming our offensive coordinator. So it's just like, man, before he even gets the chance to show what he can do, you're going to bring in somebody to basically replace him. At the very least, split carries with him and targets, most importantly as well. Because right now, Antonio Gibson is seen as our 3rd down back. He's going to be the guy catching passes out of the field, out there running routes like receivers, even pre-snap, motioning out to literally be a receiver, line up out wide to run a route when the play starts and things like that. That guy, you're just going to go ahead and just bring in a guy to replace that or to eat up those type of targets, eat up those type of snaps and contribution to the team and things like that. So I just feel like that isn't the right thing to do. It's really intriguing when you hear that the Commanders are actually for real reportedly interested in Kareem Hunt. You're like, wait a minute, okay, you add him to this group, we could be even better. But you got to remember, my main thing is there's only one ball, so many mouths to feed. We're still talking about Logan Thomas being Sam Howell's favorite target. which doesn't include Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. Curtis Samuel's going to be that gadget role guy that's catching all the sweeps out of the backfield, screens and things like that, all of the real trickery type of stuff. And then again, you still have Brian Robinson and Chris Rodriguez, who we drafted. I know it was the 6th round pick, but he should have gone way sooner. And the Commanders are very high on him, and they want him to take away carries from Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson. So they clearly believe in him as well. And it's just like, I mean, Cole Turner has been doing his thing. Curtis Hodges has been doing his thing. I can't wait for Armani Rogers to come back healthy. And then you got to remember, Sam Howell runs as well. Sam Howell's not necessarily just going to see all of these options and throw it every time. He may take off and run because he's mobile. So you got to remember, there's only one ball. If somehow you can just have 3 footballs out there at the same time, then yeah, come one, come all, Kareem Hunt, let's do it. But where would he fit into this? We already have terrible fantasy options as is, which is a great thing. As a fan of the Commanders who wants to win, as like Eric Bieniemy as your offensive coordinator, you prefer to have as many options as possible to keep the defense guessing, to keep them off balance and things like that. And it's just unpredictable. But fantasy football wise, we are a nightmare. You have a questionable quarterback according to everybody else. I believe in Sam Howell. I think he's going to ball out. And then you have so many great players. None of them are going to necessarily just be featured like a Justin Jefferson is, where he's guaranteed to get a certain amount of targets and yards and production every game. Again, you have all of these tight ends, all of these receivers, and also all of these running backs. And then you're going to add another one that not only runs the ball, but catches the ball as well. And how are you going to keep him happy with all of that? I mean, going from being behind Nick Chubb in the depth chart, and he was still scratching and clawing to get all of those targets and carries. And then you're going to try to throw him out there with Brian Robinson, Chris Rodriguez, and Antonio Gibson. And I'm not saying that those 3 guys are Nick Chubb. I'm just saying that those are 3 guys versus 1. I mean, I know the Browns did have that one running back, I can't remember his name right now, that was coming out and balling out. Anytime Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt, either one or both of them were hurt, that guy would come out and ball out. But either way, it's just a little bit of different of a depth chart coming to the Commanders rather than what he was dealing with for the Browns, especially what he was dealing with the Chiefs. So looking at this running back depth chart, again, Brian Robinson, Chris Rodriguez, we already spoke on Antonio Gibson. We already spoke on those 3. But then you also have Jared Patterson, Jonathan Williams. I don't think they necessarily affect things that much, but I think those are talented guys. They clearly trust Jonathan Williams more between the 2. But I like Jared Patterson's potential. I like him as a kick returner. It seems like every time we throw him out there, he's productive. And there's a reason, man. Trying to find somebody that short behind all of those really tall offensive linemen and even defensive linemen when you're like a linebacker trying to look, it's like basically the opposite effect of having a short quarterback behind a big offensive line. Having a short running back, if anything, is basically like a help to the offense because the defense can't see him. How are you going to tackle him and find him if you can't see him? How are you going to track him down when you don't know where he is? And he's such a smart runner and such a decisive runner. Once that one hole is open, he makes that one cut. He's up the field and gone. He's getting all of the yards that you could potentially get. If Jared Patterson was a freak athlete, like extremely fast and things like that, I'm telling you, with his build somehow, with him being that short, if he could add that athleticism, he would be like a elite running back, because that's like a secret weapon. And it's just like other teams don't necessarily know how to practice for. They don't know how to prepare for that. Not every NFL team has a running back that's that small and that short that they can simulate situations where it's like, we got to find this guy. Most NFL teams aren't practicing towards trying to find somebody that small in the backfield play after play after play throughout a game. So that's why when we throw him out there, he just seems so effective, because it's like a secret weapon. It's something that people are never ready for. So I like Jared Patterson even involved in the running back group. Again, one ball. How are we going to remember? We still got, I didn't even mention guys like De'Ami Brown, who I think is going to make a name for himself. I really do. I mean, again, him and Sam Howell have this crazy chemistry. At the beginning of OTAs, it seemed like De'Ami Brown was his favorite target, and then over time, Logan Thomas took that over. And then again, that's still ignoring Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and Curtis Samuel. And then, I really think, if anything, Antonio Gibson needs to be the centerpiece of what we're talking about in this video. He needs to be the primary focus, because I feel like, if anything, he needs a bigger role from last year, not less. Again, coming up on a contract year, I think, if anything, he's going to give it his all. But also, I just think he's that great of a running back potentially. I mean, I know he's rough around the edges. Still needs to improve in pass protection, vision and things like that still need a little bit of improvement. But there's nobody else on this team that can do certain things like Antonio Gibson can. Because Curtis Samuel is a great runner, very shifty, but he's not as big as Antonio Gibson as far as expecting him to run people over. And then there's a lot of people on this team that can run people over, but are they as fast as Antonio Gibson? Definitely not. Antonio Gibson, and I guess you can argue Armani Rogers, are like the biggest freaks of nature in our offensive group when healthy. And so, man, without Armani Rogers out there, if you just need somebody that's just, you don't know if they need to break a tackle, run somebody over, run past somebody, juke somebody out of their socks, Antonio Gibson is like really our best combination of just, how did this guy even get born? Who made this man in a lab type of freak athlete? Again, I think it's literally between him and Armani Rogers. And you got to find a way to make that work. And I trust Eric Bieniemy will find a way to make that work. Bringing in Kareem Hunt will only hurt Antonio Gibson's development, progress, and his chances of getting that next big contract and putting up big numbers this year. Now, granted, of course, I can see a lot of people where they're just like, hey, I don't care how productive guys are. As long as we win, if we have more options, that's better. But at the same time, I don't think a lot of people realize that running back is a momentum type of position. It may not be as bad and as momentum based and dependent as quarterback, but man, the more you run the ball, the better feel for the game you get and the more effective and efficient you are at running the ball. That's why I remember Adrian Peterson was so upset when he kept having to come back to the sideline and split carries with people, with the Saints, even with the Washington football team, Commanders, Redskins, whatever we were at the time. It's like a certain rhythm that you gain when you're running the ball repeatedly. Your 18th run, even if you're banged up, is going to be better than usually than your first run, because you have like a feel for what the defense is doing. You're pumped up. You're pretty much warmed up too. There's an element of yourself. You're warmed up. You pretty much gotten your juice going, your adrenaline pumping, and then also not even pertaining to just you, but you have a better feel for the game with the defense is setting up, how they're trying to play you, how you can counter them. Okay, they've done this, or I'm gonna do this next time to catch them off guard. You're in a better position in a chess match. You know, you have like prior experience and evidence and past things that have happened that game that you can base your calculations on for the future. It's just like a whole flow of the game type of thing. And it's just like the more carries you got to split, the harder it is to get in to that flow of the game. That's why running back is kind of like feed the hot hand. The first guy that gets that really good run where it's like, oh yeah, he's in the zone, he's on fire, they tend to keep giving that guy the ball because it's like, okay, somebody caught it, let's go with it. And so that's why a lot of teams that have like one main running back, that guy just seems to go crazy because he's constantly getting those carries, whereas teams like us, where we have Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson last year, and then now you added Chris Rodriguez, that's why it seems like they have some off days, some on days, and not even just days, but like series, like maybe one drive Brian Robinson looks really good, another drive he doesn't, because Antonio Gibson came in and ruined his momentum and things like that. So to add another person to that group just sounds a little insane. It sounds fun. I would love to bring in Kareem Hunt. Sounds really fun, but it just doesn't make any sense at all, honestly. And I feel like, if anything, with me being a huge Antonio Gibson fan, it's kind of disrespectful towards him at the end of the day. Like, why are we still looking at running backs? That's what I would say if I'm Antonio Gibson. We already have too many. Not to take anything away from Kareem Hunt. I mean, that man is different. Again, if you earn carries from Nick Chubb, you're doing something right. But at the same time, man, and I'm not trying to say that Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson, and Chris Rodriguez are Nick Chubb, but I am saying that we have a better receiving group than the Browns, and just overall, we have so many mouths to feed. Where's Kareem Hunt fit in this? That's my main question. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it or learn anything. As always, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors' names you see scrolling the screen right now. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Do you want Kareem Hunt on the Commanders? Does it make sense to you? And if so, are you willing to cut somebody? Are you like Antonio Gibson? You better get in where you fit in and find a way to earn that next contract. Regardless, you want Kareem Hunt type of thing? Or are you thinking that Kareem Hunt comes in and takes away more carries from Brian Robinson, more touches from Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson? How do you feel about this whole situation? Or are you just like me, where it just doesn't make much sense at all with all of the mouths that we have to feed? Or are you just on the other side, where it's like the more the merrier? Also, of course, appreciate all the support, man. Again, leave a like on this video if you haven't already. I'm gonna catch y'all later with the next video. I'm out.